Hi, welcome back to the channel, guys. In our previous videos, we saw Omnistudio data mappers. Today's video, we're gonna look at Omnistudio integration procedures and what they are and how they can be used, right? So, integration procedures in Omnistudio is one of the most powerful tools that we have in Omnistudio. It's like a function in a traditional programming where we could combine a lot of other stuff and execute them in a sequence. So, just like I mentioned, it's used for combining and executing multiple actions like data mappers and child IPs, an Apex code, or any remote API calls, and then return a particular JSON back as expected, just like any function in traditional programming. And also, it can be called from multiple places. You can call an integration procedure from LWC, a Lightning Web Component, or a Flex card, or Omniscripts, or Apex, or even within an IP itself, like a parent IP can call a child IP. Okay, so let's look at this visually, what an integration procedure is visually and how it is used, right? So this is our Omniscript. An Omniscript is like UI element of the Omnistudio. We haven't looked at it in our videos, but we'll definitely make videos about it in the future. But it's like just think about form on Salesforce. So we get an input from the user through this Omniscript, and then we pass it to our integration procedure. We transform that input that we get from the user using a data mapper transform, and then we make an API call through our HTTP action inside the integration procedure. That's an external call to the external service, and then we transform the response we get from the external service using our transform data mapper again, and then we use a data mapper load to load that data into Salesforce, what we get from the external system, and then send an email to a particular customer based on what the response is, and then return a particular value back to the component that was calling the integration procedure. So yeah, let's jump into a demo and see it in live how it works. So yeah, here we are in an Omnistudio integration procedure tab. It looks exactly like a data mapper tab, a new import, and we even have export. So let's say, for example, products. If you go here, we could even export it into a JSON, like a JSON format, and then import it back. Okay, let's create a new integration procedure. Yeah, so we call it integration procedure example 1. Yeah, and then tie. So it'll be example subtitle IB example 1. So if you want to use this integration procedure somewhere and call this integration procedure somewhere else, we don't use this name usually. How you would see it is with like this. You just have to use the type and the subtype. For example, type and then the subtype. So this is what we'd use to call this integration procedure if you have to call this from another component. We'll look at that in the future, but yeah, just for reference. So and then we have a save button here. We save, so it creates that integration procedure for us. And then we have a delete button, create version and activate version. We don't have this create version functionality in our data mappers yet, but this is a really good functionality. So you could create multiple versions of this integration procedure and work on them separately and activate one. So that's the one that will be used when someone is trying to call this integration procedure, the one that is active. But let's say if you have multiple developers working on one particular integration procedure, each one of them can create their own versions so that they don't interfere into each other, and then eventually have them merge in one final version. And here we have all the elements, all the components that are used in the integration procedure on the left here. This is our block elements, we call them. So the block elements are elements that we can call different other actions within this block. This is a cache block used for caching data. So anything you put, if you put a cache block, you can add different actions inside this block. And then we have a conditional block, similar. It's a block element where if you just run conditionally that whole block, if you want to run something conditionally, and a loop block for like a traditional programming loop, for loop, while loop, and a try and catch block, again similar to what we see in traditional programming. We'll look at them in details in our future videos. Then we have other actions here. They have many actions and they keep increasing with different releases. So let's see one quick example how it would work. We have set value actions, one of the most used actions. So we'll add a set value. Set value is like creating a variable, right? You basically can create a variable here, like let's say product name, and then you can give it iPhone 16, right? So that's the variable we create using set value, and then you can add multiple of them. And then if you want to make it like an external call, we have actions like HTTP actions where we can make external calls to any external API like REST API calls, or else we even have remote actions to call Apex functions here. We have many actions here. We'll look at each one of them in details in our future videos, but for now, this is a set value, and then let's use this response action. So a response action is like a return statement in traditional programming. This is what will be like whatever we add inside this remote action. A response action is what's going to be returned back by the integration procedure. So we have here set values and product names. So let's say we want to return that. So we'll add it here, product name, and that is supposed to come from our set values, product name. And then just like we had a preview tab in our data mapper, we have that here too. And here you can add inputs, whatever input we want, or even add it as a JSON if it's really complex. So in our case right now, this example, we don't really need any input. We just execute and see what happens. So there we go, you get the product name returned back. So this is what will be returned back to the caller of the integration procedure. Okay, and moving on, we have all these three tabs here: debug logs, errors, and options on the right. The debug log is very important tabs here and very useful in my opinion. So this is where we can see the whole execution sequence of what's happening with this integration procedure and debug the integration procedure and see if something is not working as expected. So this way you can see all the debug, the debug's full response, then you can see a debug log here, full data JSON response, that's everything, like the set values we call, the response actions, the options we have. We'll look at all of this in details in our future videos, so don't worry about it. And then best part is you can see the execution sequence, what ran first and what ran after that. So set values ran first and then response action. So that's that. And then here we can see the errors, if there were any errors in the integration procedure. In our case there weren't any, so we don't see anything here. And that's the options here, like it's debug mode on, chainable is an option that we'll see in the future. That's false, cache is false, ignore cache is also true. So yeah, that's the basics of an integration procedure and how it works and what we can do with it. So we just went over like the basic UI of the integration procedure, but in the next video we'll look at set values and response actions and details. Stay tuned to learn more about Omnistudio, and if these videos are really helping you guys, please do like, share the channel, and see you guys in the next one.